So I want to talk about this comment and people's misconception of the men's rights movement and MRAs. Don't worry if you didn't have time to read the whole thing just now. I'm going to put it back up in a second and discuss it. But this video is for a lot of new people who are coming to my channel from the Majority Report with Sam Sater. And a lot of people have misconceptions and negative stereotypes about the men's rights movement and MRAs that I want to discuss in this video. And since I really don't feel I was given much of a fair opportunity to present my case of what MRAs are and what we believe, I'm going to kind of use this video as like an introduction to the men's rights movement and who we are, who we aren't, what we believe, what we don't believe. All right, so let's first read the entire comment. This is someone who is talking to me and other MRAs about the men's rights movement and their perception of it. Once again, the only introduction you people have to feminism is facts and logic compilations. If you actually, I don't know, sat down and read a book, you'd realize how wrong you are. Feminists seek to liberate everyone from the toxic culture of gender normatives. This is the paragraph, though, I want to talk about the most. Like, you guys just don't understand feminism and are just all bitter about women in your life. But that doesn't have to be a permanent state of being. You could educate yourself about feminism the right way and grow as a human being. Like, no offense, but MRAs just don't seem to be the healthiest and most well-adjusted people. You all seem bitter and resentful, but you can change if you put in the work. So, who are MRAs? What do we believe? And what is the men's rights movement really about? The men's rights movement is a movement that wants to address issues of discrimination and disparity that affect men and boys around the world. Some of the issues are political issues and legal issues under law, discrimination under law, and some of the issues are social issues, more like social patterns and trends. Something that the men's rights movement is not is sexist. It's a myth that many people believe that MRAs want to go back to the old-fashioned ways of traditional values where men were the leaders of society and the leaders of the world. But that's not what we believe. We believe in equality for all, and we're against sexism of all kinds, including sexism against women. We would oppose discrimination of women, and we believe in equality for everyone, regardless of gender. There are actually many famous women in the men's rights movement. And there are many women who have leadership roles in men's rights organizations. I would also strongly recommend the Red Pill documentary from feminist filmmaker Cassie Jaye. Now, it's not the same red pill as the subreddit, and that whole philosophy is really nothing to do with that. It's a very interesting documentary because when Cassie Jaye started out the documentary, she was a feminist, and she was expecting to do a documentary on the men's rights movement and find it to be sexist and misogynistic and bigoted. But over the 2 years she did the documentary, her opinion actually changed. And I strongly recommend, I put a link to this below, I strongly recommend watching this documentary. It's a very good 2-hour introduction to the men's rights movement and what some of the issues are. Another thing the men's rights movement is not is racist. One of the myths that I hear is that the men's rights movement is really only for white men, or it's a white movement in disguise. This is completely not true, because men's issues affect men and boys of all races all around the world. And the issues that the men's rights movement talks about affect men of all races all around the world. So the men's rights movement is for everybody. So let's go back to this comment here. And I'm just going to focus on the middle paragraph for now. I'm not going to make it a whole debate about feminism and who's right and who's wrong about everything. But I just want to kind of briefly show why these misconceptions really don't make sense when you think about it. So let's look at that middle paragraph. Like, you guys just don't understand feminism and are bitter about women in your life. But that doesn't have to be a permanent state of being. You can educate yourself about feminism the right way and grow as a human being. Now, what I don't like about comments like that is it's very assuming. It's just assuming that we've never done research on feminism, we've never read about feminism, we've never debated feminists, and we're just kind of making all of this stuff up in our heads. When the reality is, if you go through this very channel, you'll see examples of political feminist groups actively working against equality, very often in a way that hurts men and boys in particular. And here's the thing. We're not against the principle of feminism. This surprises people. This is another misconception. We don't hate the idea of feminism, and we don't hate feminists for wanting equality. We agree with that. What we're saying is that there are some particular feminist organizations and some particular feminist individuals in leadership positions who do things that work against equality. I've had conversations with feminists that by the end we realize, we kind of agree with each other, like basically on 99% of everything. Maybe not quite everything, there's a few things that we disagree on, but we're pretty much coming from the same place and the same mentality. And so they would ask me, well, so why are you an anti-feminist? And I say, listen, I'm not against feminists like you. I would support a feminist like you. But take a look at this story, for example, this article or this law or something that this feminist group did, this law they supported that discriminates against men. And they would say, wow, I never knew, stuff like this. You can see examples all over my channel. Just browse through my videos when I cover these kinds of stories. So we're not against the principles of feminism. Another part of that argument that makes no sense at all is when they said, oh, well, MRAs are just bitter at women, and we're just bitter about women. And that's something I hear directed a lot towards the men's rights movement, is it's all just about, oh, we hate women and we're bitter about women. But time out just a second there. Let's kind of think about that logically. If the men's rights movement was just about bitterness towards women, why are there so many women in the men's rights movement, including in positions of leadership within the men's rights movement? So that is pretty easy to dismiss. Now, this is something that wasn't mentioned in this comment, and it didn't come up on the Sam Seder show, but it does happen a lot when I have debates about the men's rights movement, is being called an incel, and how MRAs are instantly thrown the incel label towards them. And I want to talk about that a little bit because I really don't like that for several reasons. First of all, it's completely nonsense and stupid to just assume that someone is an incel because they're an MRA. I know MRAs who are married with children. So it's a really just stupid thing to assume about someone that you really know nothing about. But secondly, the reason why I don't like the whole phenomenon of now labeling people as incels is a person's value should not be defined by their success in dating. Like a person's value, a man's value is not defined, and a woman's value, a human being's value, is not defined by how successful they are in dating. And just because someone has trouble in their dating life, in the dating world, that doesn't lessen their opinions or beliefs. That doesn't make their perspective any less important. I see that as a very cheap and very anti-intellectual insult that I really just don't like. Now, I do agree there are some toxic incel communities, and when it's done in a toxic or hateful way, yes, I understand the criticism. But a lot of times, incel is just automatically thrown out to a man who says he's a men's rights activist or who people perceive as a certain way, and it's immediately thrown out as an insult as if it lessens them as a human being. And I just don't like that because I just don't think that makes really any logical sense to say that, well, because you have trouble in the dating world, that must mean you're a bigot, or that must mean your views don't matter. I just don't like that. So that's just a brief introduction on what the men's rights movement means to me. Hopefully you got a little bit of a vibe of what this channel is like. I like to discuss, and I like to debate, but, I don't like to argue. And I don't like coming into discussions with a combative or an argumentative mentality because I just don't find that that's productive. So I would love to discuss, I won't even say debate, I'll say discuss these kinds of issues with feminists. But what happened on the Sam show, and I'm not going to harp on that forever, is just a lot of people were talking about it, and I know a lot of people are here right now because of it, so I'm just going to bring it up again. What happened on the Sam show was not that. It was a very negative environment, and I feel it was a very negative discourse that really didn't help anyone or didn't help solve anything. When I call into a leftist or a progressive show, and people hear I'm a men's rights activist, they instantly think, oh, I'm their enemy. But that's not true. Because the men's rights movement is not anti-left. People think the men's rights movement is a right-wing movement, but it's not. It's not right-wing or left-wing. There are liberal and conservative MRAs. What I'm hoping to achieve by calling the Sam Show, by having this channel, by making videos, by writing articles, is to kind of show people, hey, you know, this is what a lot of people are thinking and experiencing, and a lot of men are experiencing these issues, and we don't feel like we're being represented, and we would like to have something done to address these issues. And it really is as simple as that. And the way it gets twisted into like incels, alt-right, lunatic, crazy, it's really kind of hypocritical that some of the same people who would talk about toxic masculinity are some of the people who are very anti-MRA. Because think about this for a second. People who talk about toxic masculinity say that toxic masculinity is like how men aren't able to express themselves. It's not that it's just that, but that's one of the things that people might define as toxic masculinity. One of the traits is how society doesn't allow men to express their emotions. But what is being an MRA? Being an MRA literally is a man expressing his emotions and expressing himself and expressing his thoughts. And yet what happens if a man says he's an MRA? He's immediately attacked, and immediately people have all these negative stereotypes. And that to me is a shame. So I always welcome conversations, and I always welcome discussions. If you're new to this channel, if you're a feminist, if you're an anti-MRA, feel free to comment. If you want to come on here and we'll have a live stream, we'll have a discussion, I absolutely welcome that 100%. But anyway, that's just a brief introduction. And thanks for watching.